Welcome back, friends. Thanks for being here. This is Steve, and I stumbled across something that was really interesting the other day. I don't even know what I was looking for, but I found that Microsoft has open sourced a couple of early versions of MS-DOS. And then that led me down the rabbit hole of trying to figure out how to actually play with it, and I found a way to do it. So stick around and let's play with MS-DOS 1.25. All right, folks, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, do all that fancy YouTube stuff, and there are ways to support the channel in the description down below, as well as links to all the websites that I mentioned in this video. The first one is going to be the GitHub repository, and this repository has been archived by the owner. It is now read-only, but you are still able to have fun with it. And it looks like it was open sourced back in November 5th of 2018. And there is a license file and some README files and all kinds of other stuff. Contribute. Don't send pull requests. Let's go in and take a look at MS-DOS 1.25. And this is an email from Tim Patterson to Len Shustak. Hope I pronounced that right. And here he talks about how he found the source code. And that's a pretty interesting read. And then in here are some binary files. And if you can find a way to get those onto a floppy disk image and boot them, that will be great. One of the things that's difficult about this is that the floppy disks at the time that this was made were 320K disks, and it's actually pretty hard to make 320K disks. It's fairly easy to make 360K disks, but 320K disks are a whole other story. I was able to get these files onto some disk images to be able to play around with them, and we'll take a look at some of the files that are here. But there is another way to make it a little easier if you just want to kind of casually do this, and I'll show you how that works also. Let's go back up and look at some of the source code. This was all written in assembler, and there's not a whole heck of a lot of it to begin with. So the IO and the MS-DOS files there turn into .sys files in order to boot the machine, and then there is the file that turns into command com, and a couple of other support files that are there. Let's take a look at the command com file. And you can see what coding and assembly looked like back in the day on very, very limited hardware compared to what we have today. And if you are into assembly language, then take a browse on this source code and see what kind of fun stuff you can get into. So what I did, because I didn't have 320K floppy disk images at the time that I started this journey, was I went out to WinWorld, and WinWorld has a lot of abandoned operating systems or older operating systems, and you can download disk images. So the first one that I wanted to go to was MS-DOS 1.25, and we are on that page, and there's some installation instructions, and there are some downloads, and these downloads are fairly platform specific. I was able to get the CDP version running and a couple of the compact versions running, but there are a couple of other different versions, even some versions for Commodore Business Machines computers. So that was pretty neat. So what I did was I downloaded the image, and then I went in and started up a VirtualBox machine. If you're not familiar with VirtualBox, this is the website for VirtualBox. The latest version is 6.1. They just wanted you to know that by making it large right in front. And there are versions of VirtualBox for lots of different platforms: Windows, OS X, Linux. This is a Mac OS machine, so I went ahead and downloaded the OS X version, and I created a virtual machine. Let me show you what my virtual machine looks like. It's nothing fancy, and most of the hardware is going to get ignored because MS-DOS 1.25 did not know about this hardware when it was created. So I gave it 32 megs of memory, but it's not going to be able to use anywhere near that amount of memory without special drivers. And 16 megs of video memory and VGA. In the DOS days, it didn't matter whether it was VGA, CGA, EGA, or monochrome. It was looking for a certain address, and it was sticking data into that address. And VGA just happens to have an address that DOS knows to do things with. And then I specified the CPD DOS image as my floppy disk 0, and kind of didn't matter about the host driver or the Sound Blaster setup for audio, again, because MS-DOS doesn't care about those kind of things. So let's get her started up and see what happens. Let's go ahead and get rid of this other stuff out of the background. All right, and it booted up really quick. The CPD personal computer DOS, it shows MS-DOS 1.25 at the top, and then CDP is Columbia Data Products. And back then, machines did not have built-in batteries or the ability to save time when the power was off. So you had to enter in the date and time when the machine booted. So the first thing it does is ask you for the date, and I don't care. And the second thing it does is ask for the time, and I don't care about the time either. And then you're left at a floppy disk prompt, the A prompt. And if you've ever used DOS before, you might be more familiar with the prompt where it shows you the drive and the folder and then the greater than symbol at the end. And you normally do that through prompt $P, $G. Let's try that. Nope, that doesn't work. All right, let's try and clear the screen to get rid of that ugly command that I put on there. Nope, that doesn't work. All right, let's try and look and see what's on this disk. This is the CDP DOS disk. CommandCom, DebugCom, Edlin. Edlin was the line editor. If you ever used Edlin before, that's fun. I may do a video on that in the future. I probably won't because it's painful. Check disk, CHKDSK, A:. We'll check the floppy disk, make sure that everything is good, and may attempt to repair it. And it also gives you some information on your memory. And that is 640K of memory is free, and this is a 320K disk. Let's go back to our directory listing. Sys allows you to copy the system files over to another disk. So I could format a disk, stick it in the floppy drive, and type sys space A:, or sys space B:, and it will copy the bootable files over to that disk and make it bootable. FileCom, let's see what FILCOM is. File compare utility, cool. Control-C to break out of that. Format would help you format floppy disks. exe to bin, let's see what that is. Didn't like that. Nope, didn't like that. Link. Ah, I see what's happening. exe to bin is probably not smart enough to tell you that it needs some parameters of, say, file name, define.exe. Hey, there we go. Now there should be a define.bin file down there, and there is. Okay, so when I typed in exe to bin, and it said file not found, it wasn't the exe to bin file that wasn't found, it was the file that I didn't tell it didn't exist, and it wasn't smart enough to tell me that it needed me to type in a file name. So link is the Microsoft Object Linker. You would use this for compiling assembly language programs. I'm not going to do that. MASM is the Microsoft Assembler. I'm not writing anything in assembly language here today. Let's see what's on here. CREF. I don't think there are any CREF file names. Nope. Lib, Library Manager. Basic A is your basic programming language. Let's do something simple. 10 print hello world. 20 go to 10. And type run. Yay! It's going to do that forever. Or at least until we reboot the machine. So let's reboot the machine. Oh, let's reboot the machine in an easier way. Okay. And then basic is the same thing. Back in the day, there was Basic and there was Basic A, and Basic A was Advanced Basic, and there's a little bit of difference between the two of them. Let's see what Basic 86 is. Basic 86 Rev 521. The 86 DOS version of Basic. So let's do 10 print hello world, 20 go to 10, and run. Woo. Hey, we can actually click this one. Define. MS-DOS 1.25 define. This program permits you to modify the system configuration bytes in the boot block which define the following aspects of the operating system: disk drive capacities and locations, serial port baud rate, existence of RAM disk, expansion of tabs and 2 spaces on serial port, etc., etc., etc. And I'm not going to do any of that. And then disk comp would compare 2 floppy disks to each other. And if you only had 1 floppy disk drive, you say disk comp a colon, and it will read a chunk into memory, ask you to switch disks, read a chunk into memory of that, compare the 2 of them, switch it back, switch it back, switch it back, switch it back, switch it back. That was always a lot of fun. And there you go. That's the basic DOS stuff. Now, I did have a floppy disk of the other DOS stuff from the GitHub repository. Let me get that inserted. All right, I've got that disk inserted in the B drive. So let's take a look at that. Whole bunch of stuff on there. This is not the CDP version. This is the DOS version off of GitHub. And basically the biggest difference here is that there are more basic files. Let's see if there's any more executables here. Those look familiar? Basic, basic A, check disk, command, comp, debug, disk comp, disk copy, edit, format, mode, set clock. So there is a mode command and valid parameters. And for anybody that's new to computers, there's no help. No help of any kind. Yeah, they already know what it was. Look it up in the manual or whatever. And there's a couple of different things you can do with the mode command. Usually it has to do with how the computer addresses the devices that are attached to it. So I tried to switch the video from whatever it was over to color 80, and it didn't know what to do about that. I tried to switch it over to color 40, it didn't know what to do about that. I tried to switch it over to mono, it didn't know what to do about that. At the time MS-DOS 1.25 was written, there probably weren't color displays. So let's see what else is on there. Set clock. Probably some custom hardware clock that was available in the IBM PC. And everything else looks about the same. So let's go back to the A drive. And these are some of the basic files that came with the version of MS-DOS. So let's do basic A d:\art.bas. Be ready to be impressed. All right, so IBM Personal Computer ART version 1.0, copyright IBM, 1981, 1982. Let's press the spacebar to continue. Ooh, the city. Yep, folks, that's art. Let's list the program. 1,540 lines. And I know they don't go by ones, they go by tens usually. And you can see on the screen in some cases they go by less than tens, like 1520, 1522. But there's some of the source code. Again, you can go back to the GitHub repository and take a look at these. Oh, that's pretty. All right, let's try ball. IBM Personal Computer Ball version 1.10. This is not the first release of this software. They actually made improvements before they gave it to the public. Oh, the power of BASIC. Okay, that's enough of that. Oh, that's pretty. I didn't type system right. All right, 1620 lines on that one. Hard to type when the screen's blinking. My keys are getting stuck. Let's reset. All right, so we did art, we did ball, let's do calendar. Oh, no tab completion. Enter the year, 1989. And this will go right to the printer. Okay, well, we're not going to do that. Okay, nothing we can do about that. Let's reset the machine. That program looked like it would print a calendar out on your printer. There you go. It's not really a circle. More of a spiral. And these look like they're CGA graphics, so there apparently was some graphics capability back when these were written. Color bar. All right, that puts up all of the colors that can be displayed on the color screen. And we press escape to exit. And even that's 1520 lines. Communications menu. Choose one of the following. Oh, cool. See if it accepts function keys. Oh, there we go. 80 columns. Sweet. Number 1, description of program. An asynchronous communication link will be established between the selected service and the IBM personal computer as follows. 300 baud. Oh, blinding speed. Parity E, data bits 7. Stop bits 1. For Dow Jones and the source, and stop bits 2 for series 1, option 3 and 6 allow for the above characteristics to be supplied by the user to define communication link to other services. Then you can select 40 column or 80 column. Cool. This is a way to get your computer online. Back in the day, 300 baud. Oh, wow. And this program is less lines of code than some of the other programs. That's interesting. It seems like it would do more and it's a little bit more useful. I mean, comparing usefulness to drawing spirals on the screen. All right, let's do donkey. Some of you already know what's coming. Don't spoil it. Donkey. Oh, I hit the donkey. Press spacebar to switch lanes. Not the arrow keys, the spacebar. I hit him on purpose that time. The reaction speed here is amazing. All right. Hours of fun for the whole family. Yeah, see, this program has more lines of code than the serial communications program that we can go out and retrieve the up to the minute at 300 block Dow Jones stock prices. What else we got? Mortgage. Uh-oh. Mortgage analysis. We can do mortgage payment comparisons or mortgage amortization. Let's do payment comparisons. Enter base mortgage amount. I don't know, what's the price of a house in 1980? 70,000? Base interest rate. What were the interest rates in 1980? Let's do 35%. Oh. Number of years for the mortgage. 35 years at 35% interest. I want to make sure I give them as much of my money as I possibly can. All right, so there's 35-year mortgage loan amounts. So it gives you 4 different loan amounts to compare, and it runs through a couple of different interest rates and tells you what your payment would be. So $70,000 house in 1980 at 35% interest would be $2,000 a month. Let's do mortgage amortization. Let's do that same mortgage. 70,000, one more zero. 35% interest. Maximum number of years, 35. And beginning payment number of 12-month period. Let's get down to the end. Let's do 410. So in the last 10 years, that doesn't give you the running total. I think that would cause a heart attack. The last 10 years, you would have been paying year 410, $1,693.16, $348.52 worth of interest, and you would have had $10,256.26 left remaining on your mortgage. You look at the root words for mortgage, mort-gage. Mort is death, and gage is grip, death grip. Awesome. 0 to end amortization. Escape key to exit. Let's look at the code. Oh, we're going to have fun with this one. Reset. I don't know if it's mort or mortgage. I think it's mortgage. It's mortgage. Oh, I love it. We're not going to look at the code for that one. Music. This ought to be interesting. Hey. Yep, and sound's not working, because I can't hear it either. I think there's something about not being able to virtualize the PC speaker in VirtualBox. Look at this code. Yeah, I can imagine this one would be long, because all of the data statements that contain all of the musical notes for all of the music that is in there. I'll give him that one. Pie chart. Title of chart. Awesomeness. How many items in chart? 10. I don't want to stress the computer out too much. It didn't like that answer. How many items in chart? 5, 3, 2, 1, A, B, 12, 42. Broke it. And you can't break out of it. Reset. Yeah, I know, I showed you 6.1 and VirtualBox is available and I'm only using 6.0. No tab completion. Hey, look at that. There was a menu that would have done all that for me. All of the above programs require 48K of RAM if using basic A. So 360 lines for a menu system. Space. Space, space. That one's going a little wonky in the emulator, but there's an alien ship floating around the screen. I think it's actually teleporting in and teleporting out of existence. I'm going to exit before I show the code. 1,500 lines. Poke statements. Poke statements on a DOS computer? No. Well, there you have it, folks. That's DOS 1.25, and it was glorious. Not a whole heck of a lot you could do with it at the time. And yeah, there's business applications, but who wants to see business? Who wants to see WordStar? I mean, come on. Once you've seen one word processor, you've seen them all, right? Anyway, leave a comment below about some of the cool things that you did with DOS 1.25 if you used it, and if you didn't use it, leave a comment with the version of DOS that you started with. I can now officially say that I've used MS-DOS 1.25, but I never did back in the day. I started out with DOS 3.30. So we will keep on playing with these. I saw that there was also MS-DOS 2.0 source code and some MS-DOS 2.0 source images, so maybe there'll be a future video where I do 2.0. Thanks for being awesome.